Yesterday at the unveiling of Soapbox Nigeria at Sheraton Hotels, Engineer Buba Galadima made an assertion, and I immediately saw the look on your face, and it didn't go down well with you, actually, as I based on my assumption. He said that Nigerians don't have a clear definition of restructuring that we are clamoring for. And I noticed immediately that you didn't agree with him. What and where would you have punctured holes in his speech?
First of all, the dictionary definition of restructuring is very clear. It's very simply, restructuring means that you change something from what it has always been, or from what it originally has been. So if you've been doing, going to work from, go to the office between 8 and 5, and you take a break at one hour break. If you change that pattern and you decide to start work at 9 and end at 6, and you take a 2-hour break or a 1.5 hour break, you've restructured the way that the hours that you put into your work. That's very simple way of explaining what restructuring means. It just means that you change something from the way that you've been doing it. That's restructuring. Now, in the context of restructuring Nigeria, we have to ask ourselves, what are we restructuring? In Nigeria, we are saying that we should restructure the whole system from top to bottom, from bottom to up. In the process of restructuring, there are things that I may not want change. There are things that you may want change. You may want the things kept that I want change. That's where we discuss. But to say you don't understand restructuring is not true. You have to understand restructuring. And to say that you don't understand it, therefore means we shouldn't discuss it, that's also very, very childish, in my opinion, because we know what restructuring is. Now, in the context of Nigeria, we want to restructure to the point that power is devolved. Devolution of power. We discussed it at the National Conference of 2014, of which these people who are resisting restructuring, and they know themselves, and we that are driving it also know ourselves. Also, we had the same arguments inside the conference halls and the different committees that we broke up into. We also discussed these issues. Now, you devolve power to the extent that the things that the federal government is doing today is too cumbersome, is too much for the government to do. It doesn't have the money to do it. And it is wasting its time looking how it will build roads in Rivers State, in Imo State, in Lagos State, when the governors of this state should be the ones that should make sure that their roads are built, not federal government. The schools should have nothing to do with federal government in the states. Then it brings us to federalism, because if we're really practicing federalism the way that it should be practiced, the resources in the Niger Delta, or in any place for that matter, should not go to federal government. It should stay in the states. The states will pay tax to federal government. And then the states will use whatever is left when it has paid tax to federal government to pay its salaries, to give scholarship to its people, to give its people free education, or to throw it away in the Atlantic Ocean. Whatever that state wants to do with its revenue is the business of the state. It wouldn't go running to federal government. It is wrong for federal government to come to the states and take what is in the states and take it to federal government and then share it to states that cannot afford to keep themselves. So then why did you create the states? So if we restructure, we may reach the point where states, it's very clear that states cannot look after themselves. Well, those states that cannot look after themselves, what do they do with themselves? It's their responsibility. It shouldn't be the responsibility of the people in the Niger Delta. It should not be the responsibility of Governor Nyesom Wike, whether Adamawa or Zamfarawa state is able to pay salary. Why should that be the problem of Nyesom Wike? But right now, it is the problem of River State, because the resources of River State is cutted away. So all of us are in the same mess. We can't all pay salaries, because the ones that can pay the salary without sleepless nights are using what they should use to pay their salaries to share with other people that cannot pay salary. I don't see why that is very difficult to understand. Now, that is devolution of power that will give economic power to people who already have economic power. Right now, the economic power we have has been taken away by federal government. Why should it be? Why? What law? How did we come about such a law that takes away what I own and shares it amongst people that don't have? What type of law is that? Now, that's as it devolving power to the extent that the individual states now have economic power returned to them. That's one. The other area of devolution of power will be political devolution of power. If you devolve power and you allow states to choose their governors in the real sense of it, their representatives in the real sense of it, whether their representatives are performing or not, whether they are politically performing or not, it's therefore the responsibility of the people of that state and the people that they have chosen to run their state on their behalf. And what they do right now, politically, a governor who is anointed by the president of the political party that he is standing on, if that party happens to be the incumbent party or the ruling party, the chances are, whether the people of that state wants that governor or not, they will have that governor. So we need to restructure, we need to devolve powers to the extent that the political will of the people is what emerges in any state in the way that they are represented. Now, we're also talking about restructuring socially. Now, when you restructure socially, that means that right now, for instance, you have a situation that before in the past, cattle rearing is a way of life for a particular set of people. It shouldn't be like that. Now, all over the world, in Argentina is known for its beef industry, or its business is beef and farming.
Sure.
Now, Argentina, for instance, in Argentina, it's a private business, and cattle rearing generally should be a private business. So it should not be restricted to specific states or ethnic group or religion.
Sure.
Or way of life. Then the nomads, the Fulani or the cattle rearers or whatever are known from time to be a people that moved from place to place. They're not settled permanently like Igbo people are settled, have been settled in where they are. Ijaw people settle along the riverine area. They move around, but when people move around, they move around the geographical area that they are naturally used to. So you see that they evolve around those areas. So even for instance, the riverine people, wherever they moved around, the Ijaw people, wherever they moved around, they moved along the river and they moved by boat. So even the Ijaws you find in Ghana, when you go to Ghana, where you find them is still within the Ghanaian communities that is in the riverine area.
Oh, we have Ijaws in Ghana.
There are Ijaws in Ghana. yes, there are Ijaws in Ghana. They moved from here and settled in Ghana. Now, what I'm trying to drive at, therefore, is that there is a way of life of people, and you can't stop them because that is their identity. That is what makes them who they are.
Sure.
So sometimes in Nigeria, people say to you, you shouldn't emphasize your ethnic group, you shouldn't emphasize your identity, and then it defeats the whole purpose. Because now, the reason why we have cattle rearers that move around is because they are known for that way of life. There are cattle rearers in other parts of Nigeria that are not Muslims, that are not from the north. In the east, they have people who do animal husbandry, that have a cow, that have a pig, that have this. They don't move around. So the point is that when you move, when it is allowed that people can just freely move around, we find ourselves in the problem where we are today, where people are crossing into Nigeria through our porous borders within our neighbors through the northern states. The headsmen are moving into Nigeria with no documentation. And the government has accepted that the people who invaded Agatu, the people who invaded Southern Kaduna, the Benue states, and all of those people, that not only are they headsmen, that they are not even Nigerian headsmen. That's what the federal government has told us. And the army, the federal Nigerian army, has also confirmed the fact that these are non-Nigerians. Hey, wait a minute. So you mean non-Nigerians are crossing in, coming all the way to Enugu, all the way to Elele, in Rivers State, all the way into Bayelsa, and killing people, and no one has been arrested? So if we restructure socially, we will also contain these things. Cattle rearing is a private business. So therefore, a cattle rearer has no right to ask me in Bayelsa State, or to ask me in Rivers State, or to ask me in any state of the Niger Delta region where I come from, to by right give him a piece of land where he's going to rear his cattle. Why? No, I will not give you a piece of land. And there is no legislation that must compel me to give you a piece of land. Whose father's piece of land am I going to give to you? I won't give it to you. I won't even sell it to you. Because if I sell it to you, you're still achieving what you want to achieve, which is to occupy my land. It's a form of occupation by using trade. No. Keep your cattle wherever you are based, in your state, in your region. If I want cattle, if I want to go into beef business, I will contact somebody who is rearing cattle. If I don't have anybody in Niger Delta, if I don't have anybody in southeast or southwest, then I can stretch myself and ask a cattle rearer in the north and say, I want 10 cattle, 2 female, 10 male, or 2 male, 50 female. You know, whatever way I want it. And they must weigh so much. And they must be this color or that color. I will specify what I want. Yeah. You don't just bring the cattle you want to sell and sell it to me. I should be able to choose what I want. But right now, that's not what's happening. So we need to restructure socially so that my way of life is not taken away from me. People should not come into my state and insist that people in my state, I don't drink alcohol anymore, but it doesn't mean that if somebody wants to drink alcohol, that I will tell them the dangers of alcohol. But you can't come into my state with your own set of rules and impose it on me in the name of religion, which is what is actually happening. It's already happening in Europe. And we should be able to learn from experience, other people's experience. That's why experiences are there. So that you don't allow it to happen to you. That's just the truth. And what is happening in Nigeria is that politicians and even the electorate is beginning to buy into it, that it is better not to do certain things or say certain things or make certain demands because it's not proper. Who says it's not proper? You can't come into my state and say to me that people in my state should cover themselves from head to toe. Why? Because that is how you want to dress. You can dress like that. But you cannot say that I must dress like that, because if I don't dress like that, it's offensive to you. Then if it's offensive to you, stay where they dress like that. So these are the things that we need to look at and restructure. And restructuring will change these things. And that's why people like my Buba Galadima, that I have known from the National Conference days, is able to say that they don't understand what restructuring means. They perfectly understand. What anyone that says they don't understand what restructuring means, they're lying, especially if they are educated.
All right, madam, last time you were in Abuja, you said something I remember we reported, that it is too late to restructure. Let us part our individual ways. Are you still of the opinion, or have you changed?
Yeah, see, there is always a reason for a statement on that it is too late for restructuring, and that if it is too late for restructuring, then let's go our separate ways. That definitely is a position that I can defend today, and I will be able to defend tomorrow. But that does not mean that we should not exhaust the argument of restructuring.
Okay.
And that is the process we're in now. Personally, the organization that I have convened, the Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement, and it's been convened since 2014. Now that organization, we believe, because of the way that restructuring is being resisted. Look, the Yorubas are asking for restructuring. Certain thinking of the Igbos are asking for restructuring. IPOP is asking for complete secession.
Sure.
There is some Yoruba groups that are also asking for secession. There is some groups in the Niger Delta that are also asking for Niger Delta Republic. We are asking for self-determination. Everybody is asking for something. Even from one region, they are asking for 2-3 different things. That actually shows that people are willing to settle for what they consider is best for them. So now, if Niger Delta, one voice is saying resource ownership management and self-determination, which is what the Niger Delta Self-Determination Movement is very much for. That is our first call. If we have this, it covers restructuring, it covers self-determination, which is guaranteed by the United Nations, and the President of Nigeria, President Buhari, supports self-determination. He supports it for Palestine. He supports it for Muslims that are being
in Morocco.
In Morocco,
he's
supporting it for Muslims all over the world, but he's denying it to Christians in Nigeria. Now, we believe that the way APC is going, and the people who are against restructuring are going, and the position they are taking, they don't even want to discuss it. So we're saying, fine, it's too late for restructuring. And if it is too late for restructuring, and we say that if we don't have restructuring, we must consider something else. What's the other thing that we must consider?